Gretl, thank you for joining us for this inaugural Cafe Stareable and this Creator Roundtable that we've put together. Just as a way of getting started, we'd love for you to tell us about your project, Stormchaser.
Yes. So my name is Gretl Claggett, and thank you, Ajay. It's a pleasure to be here. I love all things Stareable, Stareable Fest. I am a writer, creator, and director. I also produce, as most of us who are independent, either filmmakers or web series, television creators. But my main passion is creating, writing, and directing content that's diverse, that's generally female forward, and maybe a little bit subversive too, that entertains and transforms. So I created Stormchaser as a long narrative short and also as a proof of concept television pilot, because it is a story that I think has a lot of legs for expansion, particularly in the limited series or anthology series realm. And the heart of the story is about Bonnie Blue, who's really, I guess, an unexpected heroine who always wanted, all she ever wanted to do was chase tornadoes with her dad, because that's where she felt really connected to Mother Nature. And so we see a little glimpse of that at the start of the pilot, and then boom, we meet her in midlife. And she's up against a recession and struggling to make ends meet, as so many people are today. And she finds herself to be a different kind of storm chaser, chasing sales really for this shady operation called Flip Siding that sells roofing, siding, and storm doors to weather-torn areas. And so really the theme of the story is about disaster capitalism, which is one of the leading industries in the world today. It's predatory capitalism, preying upon people who have been affected by either large weather events, and of course, as you know, there are more and more of those, or even man-made disasters. So it's a moral tale. It's an allegory. Bonnie Blue is a different sort of leading lady in that she is in midlife, and we don't normally, especially in Hollywood, and I think even in the indie film realm, it's still kind of a new thing to see a middle-aged woman who is not just a mom, or a caretaker of some sort, or the sidekick, that she's a fully developed character with sexuality and a fierceness about her. And within the realm of the pilot, there's an external storm, there's a real tornado coming, and then there's this storm brewing in Bonnie Blue, the protagonist, and in Flip Smith, the antagonist, the boss, and she's faced with a moral decision. Will she take the money, or will she take a stand and do the right thing?
And thank you for that. It's an incredible project, and you really should be congratulated about what you've put together. You were, the reason we know each other, you were an official selection at Stareable Fest 2020.
Yes.
And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was amazing, Ajay. I mean, you and Sarah and, everyone working on the event, you're just incredible to deal with, so buttoned up. And I know that you had a major pivot last year. So I was thoroughly impressed by the way that you handled everything. I also got to meet a lot of great creators from all over the world. And you had amazing panels, and of course, industry people that we met with, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. So, it was an awesome experience. I mean, Stormchaser, I think, has screened now as an official selection at about 50 festivals, and we're still going. We started our festival run in late 2019. So I was able to go to a couple of festivals and have live screenings with an audience, which is, of course, that's the best because you get that direct feedback. But I experienced a lot of virtual festivals, of course, in 2020, which I'm grateful for. But I have to say that, Stareable Fest was really one of the highlights of all of the virtual festivals, just because of the care and respect that you show creators. And, I know that you are an entrepreneur and those of us who are creators, independent creators, I mean, we're all entrepreneurs, so it's tough. So it's great to be at a place where there's an acknowledgement of that and a respect for that and a real care given, which, so it was a fantastic experience.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the goals for Stareable is to celebrate this incredible creativity that this community of indie filmmakers and web series creators puts together. And there was certainly a lot of creativity in terms of how we could put together a virtual festival last year. So I'm glad to hear that you had a good experience. So one of the things you mentioned, meeting with industry, I think last year as part of the festival, you took marketplace meetings.
Yes.
How was that experience? Who did you meet with? And how did those conversations go?
Well, because Stormchaser was nominated for the inaugural Best Female Creator Award, and subsequently went on to win that, which was, just thank you. I mean, that was also a highlight. I mean, that meant so much to me and to the team. Because of that, I met with some amazing AMC Network development executives, Crystal Holt, who is on the West Coast, and then Laura Luckenbau, Alex Schwarm, and Samantha Perlman, who are on the East Coast. And, Crystal, I think, is more AMC Networks, Walking Dead. I'm not going to name all of her shows. She's awesome. She's done a lot. She's a character, tells it like it is, has an amazing sense of humor. The other team is more... they're in New York, but they're more focused on like BBC and Sundance and, some of these other channels. So
yep.
I had two great meetings with all of those wonderful development executives. And, they're fast, they're about a half an hour long, and that goes quickly. On Zoom, as we're Zooming now, it's not the same as having those face-to-face, but we'll get there. And I think the great thing is that, there's an open door there for me now when I have new material to pitch or updates about various projects.
Did you find that you learned anything from those conversations, whether it was about, specific to AMC, specific to your project, more general than that?
Yeah, I mean, the one-on-one with Crystal, of course, it's a little bit more challenging to take a meeting with 3 people via Zoom. I feel like both meetings went extremely well and that I made really great connections with all of them. I mean, Crystal was very, we got to go a little bit more into depth because it was one-on-one. And so I think, the thing that one learns in doing these type of meetings is to play the long game. It's not, hey, I'm sure that there are times where people get lucky and boom, they get a deal right out of the gate, but that's not really what this is about. It's about introducing yourself, getting to know that executive, what they like, how best to communicate with them, and and to build that long-term relationship. I think that the thing that was the most useful to me was to have that acknowledgement of Stormchaser from that level of executives, and to also hear that it's fine if it doesn't, if it's not the right project for that time, that it is the long game and there is an open door, and to keep them posted. And to also, there was the encouragement about, You really need to get a manager at this point, and we're one place. You need to be pitching your work as a creator and a director to multiple networks and streaming platforms. Although, obviously they're going to put AMC networks first, as they should.
As they should. And that's awesome. And so have you, I think that's exactly right, right? These are about building relationships and, showing that you have the talent, and maybe this isn't the right project for a specific network or streaming service, but there will be other ideas, right?
Absolutely.
Have you explored, other projects with them, or gone back to them with, scripts or potential show ideas?
Well, this was in the fall, right?
October.
In the fall of last year. So I did send them a couple of brief pitch decks, and that showed kind of a range. I do plan to go back with I have a goal to have a pilot for a metaphysical thriller completed by mid to late May. I have a really strong 30 pages, but after writing the 30 pages, and I have a lot more material, I was just trying to find the right running time for the pilot and for the cadence of the series. And I do feel at this point that it needs to be a 60-minute pilot and more in that realm of 45 to 60 minutes per episode. So definitely I will be going back with that and other project ideas. And, even with Stormchaser / disaster capitalism, one of the other things that was confirmed for me was that, especially right now, anthology series are really tough to sell because they're much more expensive, right? So I'm going to also kind of reconsider a pitch deck and a Bible for Stormchaser as a limited series. Because limited series, I think, are making a comeback. A couple of years ago, nobody wanted to buy them, so I think that's the tough thing as a creator is you can't really play the market. You have to create, I think, what you're passionate about and what you, everybody is different. For me, my goal is to entertain, to create a world that people want to come into, to have them laugh, to have them cry, to have them be able to escape into this world that maybe is familiar, but also strange and different than the world they live in. And at the same time, not hit them over the head with a message, but to deliver something that does have some sort of transformation, that makes them think about their own world in a different way and hopefully inspires them to make changes in their own life or in their communities and the world at large, by kind of bringing up socio-political issues or social justice issues without a sledgehammer, without it being didactic. I mean, I never strive for that at all. I want the messaging to be nuanced and subversive, really. So I think that we have to take the long haul, the long view and the long haul with all our projects, because even though the anthology series isn't right at this moment, you never know. In a couple of years, it might be right, or a limited series might be right this year or next year. So I think as long as there's a great core story and a story engine there, and you can be flexible, you can't play the market, but you have to kind of keep your eyes and ears open and just keep trying, and you never know when something will click.
Well, and that seems like really helpful and actionable feedback, right? So you have this pilot and you imagined it in a specific way, which is as an anthology, but realizing that you can also take it and preserve those characters and those themes and that tone of subversion and
satire,
and reimagining it, right, as this limited series, and still being able to explore those ideas. And but doing it in a way where, it's also a good fit for a potential partner.
Yes.
That feels like something that's really valuable as something that comes out of a conversation and allows you to go back and say, this is how I could see this playing out.
Absolutely. And the other thing I remember Crystal saying, we were talking about really, as a creator, knowing the best production companies or streamers who your content is really right for. I remember her saying that oftentimes she'll meet with creators, writers, and, they'll say, oh, this is an HBO series, or this is a, whatever series. And, in her very funny way, she was like, really? Have you watched what's on HBO? And of course, those trends change. I mean, like Netflix is looking for different things right now than they were a year ago. And that's why we can't play the market, and I'm a firm believer in, if we create stories that we're passionate about, and that are authentic, that you never know when or how, but if it's good and you make something of value to people, it will eventually find its way into the world. It will eventually find the audience and the right partners, as you said. And sometimes we think we know what that is, but it comes from a completely different angle. But I do think that was also wise counsel. It wasn't really specifically aimed at me or what I was doing, but she was just kind of in a broad scope, kind of talking about various meetings that she takes with people, and how sometimes, the person just is so attached to it being this thing that really it's not the right fit for, because of the brand, because you want to have an HBO series or a Netflix series or whatever. So yeah, I think especially in this day, as things are so rapidly transforming in our world, in our industry, it's really all about being flexible and, and being able to pivot, and not being attached to, this has to be a feature film, or this has to be, a half an hour. If somebody says, I like that, but I think it needs to be an hour long. Can you revisualize it as an hour long? Which is kind of something that happened with this metaphysical thriller that I shared with you. I sent it to someone in the industry I trust very much, and he said to me, he's like, I love this, but I think it's an hour long. It's not a half hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because it's so hard just to make something that's good, but at the same time, that's only one of the many things that a project has to be in order to work, right? It's such a collaborative industry, and a lot of it comes also down to timing. You have to find the right partner that is passionate about that idea, that has space for it, that has someone on the team that you want to work with and that wants to work with you. And so I think that idea of, still always preserving your voice and vision as a creator, but thinking about it in this flexible sort of way to understand, how you get it to that next step is super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not losing, because we've all heard those stories of people who want a deal so badly that they really allow their vision and their intent to be watered down or changed. And down the road, even though they have that deal, the project is not, they're not happy with it, and they're not happy doing it. That's some other advice that a friend of mine in the business has said to me. We all want these, of course we want development deals, and we want to be working on a project. And if you're lucky enough to have something that's a multi-year contract, you better be sure that you really want to be with that material for a long time. It's that way if you're making a feature film too, or writing a novel. I mean, these are long haul endeavors. So you don't want to be working on something that then all of a sudden kind of becomes a ball and chain, or you just, and sometimes we do things that we lose passion for, without intending to do that. I mean, sometimes that happens too, but yeah, it's as you said, it's not easy making something that's good, first of all, and then finding the right team, finding those right collaborators. And then I think the timing of it all, I mean, the way I keep my sanity is really, a very wise person once shared with me a mantra: I only want what's mine. And I really kind of go back to that, because you can drive yourself nuts, like, oh, well, why did they get the deal? Or why did that win that award and I didn't, or mine didn't, or, and we live in such a gold star society, and our industry too. It's all about what's hot right now. And you can make yourself mad, compare and despair. So you really have to be in that place of trust and doing it because you can't imagine not doing it, I guess, because it's exciting. It has really great rewards at times, but it's a lot of hard work. And there are many times where you kind of feel like, am I insane? Or you're making your way through this unknown, you're in this unknown. You have no idea how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable advice. That idea that, if you don't really believe in it, there are always going to be moments when it's going to be very hard.
Yeah.
And if you don't really believe in it, it's going to be very hard in those moments to dig your heels in. Yeah. So you really got to find something that you're passionate about, that you feel confident in those moments of doubt, that you still want to push it forward.
Absolutely.
So you've talked about this metaphysical thriller. Is that the primary thing that you're working on next? Have you given any thought to doing something else in kind of the web series or indie TV space?
Yes, I mean, the metaphysical thriller, I really do believe is a series, and I can't talk too much about it right now because it's still in its creative infancy, really. But I do have another project that I'm also working on that's more of a long time project. I have a memoir manuscript. And so I'm still kind of figuring out beyond the memoir aspect of it, which I would love to get it published as a memoir. I am adapting it into a script, still feeling into whether it would be a series, a web series, or a feature-length film. And for me, part of what it's coming down to is really the intention behind it and the journey of the protagonist. Because, with a limited series, and it might be a limited series too, there's a wealth of material there, so it's really how I transfer it to the screen, to a script. But I think that I'm leaning right now more toward limited series or feature length, because it's important that the protagonist does have that change. Whereas, in long form, where especially if you're like a Mad Men, for instance, and I know last year we talked a lot about Mad Men and, other incredible AMC network shows. I mean, they really did carve out a space that has just become so rich for storytellers. But, Don Draper, he never really changes. And that's the thing with any sort of ongoing series, is that your protagonist doesn't change. Whereas in film or a limited series, your protagonist better change, right? So that's why I'm leaning more towards limited series or feature with the script for that project. So those are really the two main projects. They're both very female forward, but very different. One is a metaphysical thriller, and the other one that takes place in multiple timelines, and is really unlike anything I've done before. And then the other project, Do This, Get That, would be more in that dramedy realm that Stormchaser is in, but yet would go deeper and darker at times. Pardon the sirens. I moved in across the street from a fire station. It'll pass quickly.
No worries.
There it goes.
So we've talked a bit about the lessons that you've learned over the past year, and the conversations you've had, and some of the advice that you've gotten. Any final advice for other creators as they think about how they take their projects to the next level, and what you think the kind of opportunities are for up and coming indie TV and web series creators?
Well, I think that, what we were talking about earlier about the passion and really knowing the why, why am I creating this? And then why now? Why the story now? Of course, that why now question sometimes becomes a little irrelevant when it maybe spans over multiple years of writing, developing. However, I think that if the story is strong and there is a universal theme with it, that there is a timelessness. And of course, in storytelling, the more specific we are, the more universal it becomes. So I think also, another big learning for me that I could share with people, as wonderful as your teammates might be, or the people that you hire to help you produce the project, or take the project through pre-production, during the shoot, production, and post-production, it's your baby, and no one is going to love or tend to your baby the way you do. And so I think oftentimes, I had done a short film happy hour before Stormchaser. And of course, I've been a director in experiential media, live multimedia for years. So I'm very used to working with teams, but it's different, when it's your baby. And I think that that's something to know going in, that you'll probably have to dig a little bit deeper into your resources than you think you might to see it through. And, there might be times where you feel disappointed that other people aren't willing to go to the mat as much as you are, but that's just part of the process. And you can't take those things personally, and everyone is doing the best that they can do. And I think another piece of advice too is to really trust your gut, so that if something doesn't feel right, or there's some, not everyone is a match for every project. So sometimes we have people join a project that maybe aren't the right person for that role. So it's better to kind of acknowledge that early on than to kind of stumble along with it. And those are tough things to do, especially if you're someone who, it's like, hey, let's make this happen together, and you want everybody to get along, and you want to have that sense of camaraderie, but it's also a business, and you have to fiercely protect your creation, and sometimes that means saying no, and sometimes that means walking away. And it does mean, as we were talking about, playing the long game. I think one thing that I have seen a lot is that people oftentimes rush scripts. They want to get into production, like, we got to do this and we got to make this festival deadline. And I think that's another, and I've done it, so speaking from experience, like rushing the edit, or sending an edit that's a work in progress. Yeah, the festivals will say that they take them, but unless you have like an inside person at a very high level who, I would say don't do it. And oftentimes scripts are rushed where, people will be like, oh, well, the actors will bring it to life, or we'll fix it in post. I mean, that happens, when you're filming, and it's never the case, so make sure that your script is as solid as you can get it, and then go into production, also knowing that you're going to hold on to your vision, but as you bring people in, you'll probably be adjusting things in the script. But if that script isn't at a certain level, I think it's really hard to have a project sing. But I'm speaking from I'm coming from someone who's written for years and has a big respect for the written word. And, as a director, I allow actors to improvise, but there are things that I want according to script because there were, a lot of time going into moments in the script to be a certain way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was super informative. I'm so glad to hear that things are going well for you. And I look forward to us catching up in person at Stablefest 2021, if not sooner.
Can't wait. Yes. And let me know if I can be of service in any other way.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Gretl, thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe.